Hey everyone, I'm Casey,
I'm Cassandra.
and this is Love and Murder.
Episode 2. So I know that this is your episode, but a couple things I wanted to cover. At the end of this month, Casey Anthony they're releasing her documentary. This will be the first time she speaks out about everything that happened, and they solved the case of the Lady of the Dunes, which was a case from 1974 in Massachusetts.
Well, that's going to be interesting. Oh, Casey Anthony finally coming out and talking.
Do you think she'll admit to it?
I don't know. She'll probably plead and cry about how it was so traumatic for her and blah, blah, blah. But, yeah.
So you think she'll maintain her innocence in all of it?
Without a doubt. She's just trying to get as much money as she can. I'm sure whatever service is, doing her documentary will be like, oh, here's money, and she's just gonna eat it up, and then probably start some wrongfully convicted blah 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 fund. And
she is one of the most vile humans I think I've ever done research on or heard about.
I don't know. I feel like we all know the truth, but that's not for me to decide. So.
Yeah. So let's hear about what you got going on this week.
Well, as promised in the previous episode, we're going to go over Eric Rudolph, domesticated terrorist and hide-and-seek champion.
You're
Dark
ridiculous.
humor. But in all seriousness, the whole hide-and-seek thing, he did completely evade the federal government for 5 years. So,
was that all by living in the woods, or did he stay in hotels, motels, Holiday Inns?
Definitely not any paid for housing. There's a lot of speculation on if he was truly in the woods or not. But he was like a really big outdoorsman. I don't know. It is. There's a lot of speculation on if he had help or if he didn't have help, which we'll get into. But I guess going forward, he is known as, or his birth given name was Eric Robert Rudolph. I'm talking to him like he's dead. He's not dead. He's in Colorado in a maximum security facility. I read this book on him called Lone Wolf. No, I could be wrong, but I believe that it was a biography written, but they were corresponding through mail while he was in prison. And so the author had a lot of insight into, personal stuff, and he talked to the cops that chased him and victims and stuff like that. But either way, it's a really good book. If you're interested in Eric Rudolph, you should definitely read it. I would say it's probably one of the most informative texts that we have on him and the crap that he done. I have to watch cussing this episode and future episodes. Otherwise, we have to limit our content to what regions we can share it in.
You'll have to link that book.
Yeah.
So if people want to read it.
Like I said, it's called Lone Wolf. It's by Marianne Ballers. It's got fairly good ratings. It's 400 pages long. It's definitely a good read.
A quick read for you.
I don't know, I get out of practice reading, and then I feel 400 pages take me weeks to read. And then I get one book under my belt, and I'm like, I can read the entire Lord of the Rings series in a week and a half.
I still don't believe that you can do that. I think that you just know it so well, so you just pretend to read that fast.
I'd be willing to bet that within reason that I could definitely read a 1,500 to 2,000 page book in like a week and a half.
Too much time.
Not too much time. But back on topic, Eric Robert Rudolph, he was born September 19th, 1966. Currently, that makes him 56 years old. He was caught in 2003, May 31st, to be exact. And then he pled guilty April 8th of 2005. Part of his guilty plea, he admitted to a bunch of dynamite that he had stashed, like 250 pounds of dynamite.
I'm assuming that's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole lot. You gotta figure, I mean, I don't know. I'm not like an explosives expert. I feel like half a pound of dynamite would be fairly destructive. I mean, you gotta think, those little firecrackers, I mean, I don't know, they weighed like a gram.
Is that just mini dynamite?
Essentially. He was born in Merritt Island, Florida, and in 1981 his dad died, and he moved up to Nantahala, North Carolina. And for all of my Western North Carolina people listening to this, he attended Western Carolina from 85 to 86. And then in 87 he joined the Army. He was in the 101st Airborne, and he was discharged for smoking marijuana.
So dishonorably discharged.
I would believe so. Who knows? I didn't look that up. I just seen that he was discharged for smoking pot.
I'd say that'd probably get you booted.
Depending. But, I mean, yeah, definitely got him booted, but I don't know about dishonorably or whatever. Either way, he wasn't the greatest person in the world, so he probably deserved a dishonorable discharge. And to speak on his character, he attended this church, which the founder of this church and the leader kind of took him under his wing and groomed him, tried convincing him to date his daughter. And their belief is that white people are of Adam and Jewish people are of Cain, and that Jewish people are like Satan, and they deserve less than. It's that whole like Aryan supremacy BS. And yeah, so not only was he a domestic terrorist, he was also a racist.
Sweet, just perfect combo. That was sarcasm, in
Yeah.
case nobody could pick up on that.
Yeah, so definitely the whole skinhead, just piece of crap. I'd choose other words, but I would hope that this goes to other countries. The last episode I said a couple cuss words, and it made me say that the content was explicit. So
Oh, well.
I could get one of those really cool buttons that's like, you know, bleep or like cow sounds or something like that, and then I could just say what I wanted to.
Yeah, but then it would just be riddled with it.
Probably. So like I said, that was in 84. That was when he was 18. Now, you know, he's been incarcerated for, 17 years? From, 03 to now. And
We're going on 20 years.
20 years. Good God.
Yeah, honey, it's the end of 2022.
Yeah, for one, obviously, I'm not very good at math. And for two, I'm living a few years behind. So, anyway, he now has this following, or helps lead a following, called the Army of God. And they have this, like, big publication, and pretty much they worship this guy. They have, like, published a bunch of crap that he's posted, and he'll, like, write them letters from prison, and they'll publish it on their website like they're getting letters from, someone important.
People are wild.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
All right. Do you, though? Do you?
Yeah, I don't know. You know, we're gonna get hate from the army of God. They're gonna be like, "How dare you insult Rudolph?"
I mean, I don't know if I'm ready for all that smoke, but
I don't know.
I have no idea. I don't ever understand that.
Yeah, neither do I.
Like the people who like are infatuated with people in prison for heinous crimes. I don't understand. They're never getting out.
Well, not only are they never getting out, so like they believe that he was like, I don't even know. They believe like he was like a hero to the cause. I was looking up his like court transcript of what he said. And, you know, you listen to like other serial killers, or he wasn't a serial killer. He was, you know, a terrorist. I guess they called him a serial bomber. But you listen to like some of these people that have like high profile cases, and they're like, hey, you know, I'm sorry. And then, I don't know, maybe like 2 paragraphs. This website, like, and this was like an actual government website. This was the actual transcript of the court hearing and his confession. It was like 10 pages long.
And that he addressed the court?
Yeah. He was talking about, like, you know, he has this like superior god complex. And he was talking about how he was like, I have come to terms with this government that I do not follow. Blah, blah, blah. And just in this very, like, condescending tone to the government. And then he was talking about, he was like, they know that if I did not strike this plea bargain, that a bunch of pro-life jurors would find me innocent and I'd be walking the street. It's like, fact of the matter, buddy, that's not how this works at all. I don't know. Go ahead.
I'm gonna throw it out there. He's a bitch in prison. That's it. That's it.
From what I was reading, like I'd really enjoy to think that, like, you know, all of these people that harm a lot of people are, you know, somebody's
Girlfriend.
yeah. But from what I was reading, this, like, the facility that he's held in, so if you're looking at like a rectangle, they have like, I guess 3 or 4 different pods that are completely disconnected from each other. And the facility that he's specifically held in is like, there are some extremely high profile individuals in there, Eric Rudolph being one of them. Whenever they quote unquote shut down Guantanamo, they moved some people up there. There's a bunch of like legitimate, like Al-Qaeda, ISIS, etc. terrorists in there. I'm wanting to say there was somebody else famous in there. But anyway, long story short, I'm getting off on a ramble. From what Eric has described it as, is whenever you leave your cell, you're essentially on a catwalk, and it's like an individual cell, and there's chains, like a chain link fence going up, and you are walked by prison staff. And, you know, it is very like one-on-one extreme solitude. Like, they don't play.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was reading. I think it could be hopped up, you know.
Well, I mean, he's still a bitch. Like, I'm not talking about like being someone's bitch. Like, he's probably just like super meek and super timid inside those walls. Like, he can address whoever he wants to in court and talk about, I don't serve this government, blah blah blah. Like, I mean, that's cool.
I don't know. We've both encountered people like that. That God complex doesn't go away. They still think that they're willingly, and he's got issues, but that's besides the point. But a little bit more into him. Again, he's super anti-abortion. He's extremely homophobic, like anti-same-sex marriage, anti-same-sex relationship. As I mentioned before, he's into the whole like white supremacy thing. Again, just not a very good person. But in 1996, the Olympics were going on in Atlanta. He formed some bombs. He followed this army of God thing before all this happened that pushed him to, in his words, how was it, like, warn or whatever the general public that, you know, they're going on the wrong path.
A scare tactic.
Yeah. He calls abortion clinics murder mills, and yeah. But anyway.
So let's kill people for doing what you see as murder. Let's murder them before. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's I don't know. It is what it is.
Again, people are wild.
But July 27th, 1996, the Olympics were going on in Atlanta, and this is what got him his nickname, the Olympic Park Bomber. He goes in, tons of people recognized, like, or not really recognized, he stood out because he had this, like, giant backpack on, and everybody was like, they were like, it wasn't a hiking backpack, it was just like this square pack that was on his back.
Red flags.
Yeah, and he set this bomb up. From, again, what I understand, it was essentially like a directional charge. So it had some sort of backing. The bomb was in front, and it was meant to go out. He set it under a park bench. And the security guard that was over this, like, tower thing where he had set this stuff out, he had called for backup from, I think they called it like a GSI agent or something like that. I guess it's like Georgia State.
Okay, kind of like the
State Bureau of Investigation or whatever.
Yeah.
I guess it was like one of those agents or whatever, and he was like, hey, you know, I need a little bit of authority. There was a bunch of guys over there. They were like young teenagers. Not young teenagers. They were older teenagers. I think they said that they were between like 19 and 22. Or maybe 18 and 22. Anyway, just like younger guys. And in the book, it talks about the only reason that it didn't hurt, like the bomb didn't hurt any more people, was because one of those guys thought it was his backpack, went over, picked it up, and was like, oh, this isn't my bag, and like set it back down. So the way that the directional charge was going, which was out towards the crowd, actually faced down. Still killed someone and injured over 100 people.
My God.
Yeah. But just think about what it would have done if it would have actually, you know, been facing the correct direction. And they had evacuated the area. That's what's... They said that the blast was so powerful. One guy, he said that whenever it went off, I guess the shockwave of it sent him like 6 feet forward. That, you know, once it hit him, he couldn't control it, and like he went forward. All of, I guess, like I'm just gonna group all of the like security force, police department, security,
Okay.
etc. All of those guys, they all got like shrapnel damage. They all had like to be treated for that. Another guy, he done an interview. I probably should have written his name down. I didn't. He done an interview, but he was one of the guys that was saying, you know, they were trying to get out of the area when it blew up, and you know, he was like, it hit me so hard. I don't know if he said that it knocked him unconscious, but either way, it pushed him like a few feet ahead, and he fell down. And this was all they were talking about, you know, 50 plus feet away. Like it was and that's just the percussion that comes off of it. It wasn't like they weren't being hit with like large objects or anything. Like it was a fairly large bomb. You had asked me, I was talking about, you know, the 250 pounds of dynamite. So they were saying that was only like 1 pound of explosives that he used. So that if that like roughly gives you an idea of, yeah.
So it was just, what did you call it?
Like a directional charge?
No.
What?
The explosive.
The
Dynamite.
Yeah.
So it was just dynamite that was all like...
No. So this, he had made out of gunpowder. That was another thing. So that I'm off, you know, how my brain works. that was another thing in court. He was making fun of the FBI's forensic science. He was like in court, he was like the BS forensic science of the federal government. He was like making fun of them because they found traces of gunpowder in that bag. And he was like, "How do you know that I used gunpowder?" And they like replicated the bomb that he made, and he was like, "Oh, that's actually what I made." So, but yeah, he like set this bomb up. It's very weird. I'm getting two different stories. Whenever I read that book, I thought there was only one Olympic Park bomb, and all the research that I've done, it sounds like there's two. Like he set one up. So in his eyes, he was justified because he didn't want to hurt anyone. Anyone that didn't need to be hurt. That's what he said. So he set the first bomb up and then called 911 and was like, "Hey, there's a bomb over here. You need to go get it." And then he called 911 again, and he was like, "Hey, you have 30 minutes, blah, blah, blah." Well, his math was incorrect. They had 22 minutes and were late. And so it blew up.
Were they late, or was he just wrong?
He was wrong, and that's what I'm saying. Like, they were late because he said 30 minutes, and it was actually only 22 minutes that they had.
Oh, okay. But he didn't talk about his own bullshit science.
No.
On timing.
Yeah.
But that's cool. So I have a question. You had said something earlier about how he had, he had this, like, belief system. And you touched on the, like, abortion clinics. What was the correlation to the Olympic Park? Like, why was that where he went?
So, the Olympic Park, that was just a statement that he made. I'm wanting to say that he had I don't think that he had any specific reason for the date. I'm wanting to say it was just like he wanted to make a scene. That you got to figure the Olympics that's international, that everyone is there. So that was a huge deal. And he wanted to make a statement like, "Hey, stop killing babies."
So this is a publicity stunt. He didn't have no beef with anybody at the Olympics.
Essentially. And
okay, cool.
He did make a statement in court that one of the later bombings was coming up on the anniversary of Roe v. Wade. And so that was the reason that he had done it for that date. And then, I don't know, in a terrifying turn of, events, in 2005, he made that huge confession and speech in court, and he was like, "I know one day Roe v. Wade will get overturned." That's kind of, a little scary.
He was boogieing in that cell.
Yeah.
He was.
He was like, "No more dead babies." Just,
is that your impersonation?
I don't know. I've never heard this guy talk, but I can only assume he sounds like an idiot. So.
He said, "DJ, play something funky," and got down in that cell the day that happened.
Yeah, it was fun. But one of the cops that were there during the Olympic Park bombing, the guy that actually identified the bag as a bomb, because they had been called twice, like, "Hey, there's a bomb, whatever, blah blah blah." So they had arrived, and he was like, "Man, there's just a backpack." And again, one of the guys walked over and was like, "Hey, I need to get my bag." So that bag had beer in it, and that cop was like, "Dude, this has beer in it." They didn't take it serious. They were like, "Yeah, it's a bomb threat. It's the Olympics." So they were like, "This is BS. There's no reason to, there's no reason to feel like there's any validity to it."
I got you.
Thank you. So he just walked up to it, opened it up, and everyone that gave an account for everything that happened, they were like, his eyes got huge. And he was like, "Hey, so we should probably evacuate this place. That's a bomb." And so they did. They evacuated as much as they could. Again, still injured over 100 people. It killed one lady. She had driven, I think they said, like 4.5 hours with her daughter to like watch the Olympics, and she was the only person that got killed. And then a journalist died of a heart attack running to try and like report what was going on. Yeah, so technically, if you read the article, those two people died. One only actually died of the bombing. The other was a journalist, and he died of a heart attack trying to report.
Now, was he convicted of that death?
I don't believe so.
Okay, cool. Not cool, but cool for clarifying. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of what happened there. He gave it a little bit of time. That was in 96 and 97. He went to an abortion clinic. He set up 2 bombs. I can't remember what he called these, but they were essentially like, you know, in like the movies, you have the alarm clock and you like wind it up or whatever. And then it's like, you have 30 minutes.
Super dramatic.
Yeah, extremely dramatic. So that's essentially the bombs that he was making. And he like set them to go off at different intervals. The first one, I don't know if it was a dud. The second one is the only one that they're like, ooh, because it was that actually injured 7 people.
Did they actually make that noise?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Like direct quote?
Direct quote.
Ooh.
Yeah, I practiced that.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Cool. Who made that?
Everyone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was just a group sound. Like, ooh. But that was his second bombing, January 97. And then February 21st of 97, he bombed a lesbian nightclub that was called The Other Side of Town. He had set off that bomb. It injured 4 people, and then the cops actually found a second bomb. So, you know, keeping up with his pattern of 2 bombs. Found a second bomb, and they were able to defuse the bomb before it like done any real damage. So going back to the original bombing, the Olympic Park bombing, they actually didn't know that it was Eric Rudolph. They thought that it was a guy named Richard Jewell. He was the security guard that first alerted everybody to there being like a suspicious backpack. So at first he was congratulated for being a hero, and then he went under a bunch of scrutiny from local law enforcement and media, and you know, the law enforcement started like going through his background. They started like tracking his movements and everything, and then in October of 96 they cleared him and was like, hey, you didn't have any involvement. But a lot of people believed that he did, and they were like, hey, you know, this guy's definitely still a suspect. And he actually filed a few libel lawsuits against some pretty big name media outlets, and I guess all of that was cleared before he died. August 29th of 2007. He had health problems. He was a sheriff's deputy in Georgia. In 2006, the Georgia governor, Sonny Perdue, publicly commended Jewell for saving the lives at Continental Park. So he eventually was praised and was like, hey, you know, you didn't do anything wrong. He actually saved the lives of quite a few people. But what is crazy, what I'm about to tell you next, is after Eric Rudolph bombed that lesbian nightclub, and so that was February of 97. In March, his brother goes live on the internet. Keep in mind, this is 1997, so like webcam, the whole 9 yards. And he goes live. He has a circular saw and cuts his hand off in protest of the way that the media and the police are treating his brother as a suspect. Later on, it was surgically put back on, but yeah, his brother went on a live news feed, essentially, back in 97, and cut his hand off. So
it was put back on. Is it
Yeah.
functional?
I guess. I don't know. It was surgically replaced. That's,
Replaced.
no, like they took his cut off hand and reattached it.
So did he just have like an ice box sitting next, like on standby, ready to go?
I don't know. I guess. I mean, if you think about it, like during that time, Eric Rudolph is a suspect in these horrific bombings. I'm sure that the second that, the little AOL sound for the internet popping up came on, the government was like, boom, gonna go ahead and check it out.
Right. Okay. Yeah, they had him kind of on watch anyway. So what got Eric on the wall? Like, what got him to like? What had the FBI interested in Eric Rudolph?
His fourth and final bombing. So, 2 months prior to that, or not even, January 29th of 98, in Birmingham, I think I forgot to mention it, the first abortion clinic that he bombed was in Atlanta, and then the nightclub that he bombed was also in Atlanta. So he not moved, but his crimes moved to Birmingham, and this was his fourth and final bombing. He actually made a remote control bomb out of a RC car. Like, he didn't use the car, but he used the remote control components for the bomb. And an off-duty cop that was working as a security guard, his name was Robert Sanderson. He was 35 years old. He actually died because of the fourth bombing. And then a nurse named Emily Lyons, she was 41. She was critically injured. From what I remember reading in the book, he essentially sat like a little distance away. It became like a cat and mouse game to him. And, he set the bomb up, set a little bit back, and then blew it up. And then, he done his thing. He later spoke on that, and he was like, Sanders was never a target, blah, blah, blah. He was like, it was just part of the action that I took, that pretty much declaring war, saying that he was just a casualty of war. And there was two people. One person, he drove this little 80s Nissan truck, and one person described that like, hey, just seen this little Nissan truck, blah, 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 North Carolina license plate. And he described that leaving the scene, and then someone else backed that up. That was another thing, that whole God complex that he had. He was like, I had never been in Birmingham before, much less Alabama. And he was like, they have these two suspects that kind of tie me to the crime, so I figure I just might as well go ahead and strike a deal with the government. Again, all of this in court, it's just ignorance.
So he just got really cocky.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, again, the whole God complex that he had, he felt that he was doing God's work. He gave this huge statement about how, 50 million undead children or unborn children are being murdered and blah, 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 and just on and on and on. And he was talking about how the government has made murder legal by calling them fetuses, and instead of disagreeing with abortion, he took it to an entirely new level. And he said that, he just took action rather than speaking.
So he decided he was going to become like, what do they say, judge, jury, and executioner instead of...
Yeah, like the whole vigilante.
Right, yeah.
So he actually took off. He took off. They were looking for his truck in Alabama. I believe I could be wrong on this. It's been a couple of days since I've read that book. And by a couple of days, I mean probably like 8 years.
All right.
Yeah. But I believe that he ditched his truck in Alabama, stole someone's car, and completely got away from cops.
Smart.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then came back up to North Carolina, and the cops were like, hey, they found his truck, and they were like, hey, he is number one suspect. They put him as number one on the FBI fugitive list. I believe it was number one. That might have just been top 5. Osama bin Laden might have still been number one at that point. But they put him like super high up on the fugitive list. They gave a $1 million reward to anyone that found him. You know, they carried out all this stuff. He came back up to North Carolina. He's, big fugitive trying to run. When he first gets up here, he described the first winter. He got like extremely sick, almost died, almost didn't make it. Couldn't get his thing together to survive the winter. And he had a little bit of money stashed away. This is where you were asking me, what got the FBI's attention. That's what got the FBI's attention. And then because of them putting him on the most wanted list, that's why his brother cut his hand off on live web feed. So
makes sense. It totally tracks.
Yeah. Comes back up to North Carolina. He is in Murphy. So, just small little town. I think I was reading even in 2022, it's like a 20,000 town population. And that's spread out. That's not even in the town. That's like the whole county. I believe that's Cherokee County.
Okay.
So he comes back up here and starts making a run for it. He starts making preparations to, go out, live in the woods. He either found the home or the guy that owned, it was like a local pharmacy and grocery store. He was like a family friend. And he just rolled up to his house with $500 and was like, hey, I'm going to go ahead and take some supplies. And the guy originally, he was like, yeah, man, I'll definitely help you. And he told the FBI that. He was like, okay, I'll go ahead and give you whatever. There's no way that you could have done this. And then he was like, actually, I want no part of this. And so he backed out of the deal. And that's when Eric just left $500 and was like, hey, I'm going to take what I want. That's where the speculation comes in of if he had help or not. Because a lot of people, especially in this area, not necessarily agreed with what he done, but didn't disagree with what he done.
Oh, they definitely agreed with what he done.
Yeah.
Just don't throw that out there.
Yeah.
Especially back then.
Yeah. So he got some food and supplies for about a year, and then just started living out off the land. He talks about, and he actually wrote a letter and talked about that when the FBI, huge manhunt, when this was first going, just fire under their butt, they would walk under trees, and he was up in the trees. Somehow had evaded the dog scent, somehow had evaded everyone, and was just watching them come by.
So now let me ask, we've talked about his God complex. Do you think that that might have been exaggerated or lied about a little bit? Just to boast, I was right there and they didn't even know.
No, not at all. The FBI agents, they had set up field command at a National Guard armory, that is where the 250 pounds of dynamite was buried. He wasn't lying. Like, he was right there under their nose the entire time, just waiting.
Well, I mean, I get that. I'm just talking about, like, that part of, like, being in the trees. You don't think that that was exaggerated or anything? Okay.
No, not at all. Like I said, he gave them the location of where the explosives were buried. He described their field operations. That he does. I mean, he went into detail.
Okay. All right. Cool.
So
Not cool. Again.
yeah. So I mean, there is some validation to the things that he was saying. He went back to complete survival mode. Whenever he got caught, they said that he had a bunch of 55-gallon drums just full of food and grain, and he would go down into town. Again, this was the 90s. There wasn't a whole lot of people up, especially in a small town at all hours of the night. And he would go down. There was some like save more or save something. It was like a like off-brand grocery store, and he would go and like forage in their dumpsters. And there was one part he was talking about the drums that he had gotten. There was a bunch of silos with corn and wheat and stuff in them, and he would go over there and just take all that crap. I mean, not all of it. These are, thousands of gallon silos, but he would go and, fill buckets and stuff up and then bring it back. And he had talked to someone, or it was the jailers in the Cherokee County Jail whenever he got caught. He was talking about how he lived off of like acorns and salamanders and
Ew.
yeah. So there was a lot of stuff that he done. And again, he was like a really big survivalist. At some point somebody was talking about him like trying to get into the special operations in the Army, and again, he chose to party and do other things with his time in the military. But
Do you think that he had this plan at least thought of when he decided to do the bombings? Not necessarily like planned for it, but do you think that this was a plan in his head, or do you think that this was like an oh shit, I'm caught, revert back to that?
without a doubt. I mean, again, if you go back to, I think it was 84, that's when he started attending that Church of Israel. And that's where they had those like extremely hateful, absolutely zero tolerance views. And he, again, was groomed by that guy. And I'm not saying that, it was that guy's fault, entirely, but that I would definitely say that that's where a lot of his ideas came from.
No, I mean the whole survivalist thing. Do you think that like when he did the bombings, did he plan to like go on the run?
Yeah.
Or do you think that that was something like he got caught and then reverted back to that? Like, do you think that that was planned, like if they catch on to who I am, or do you think he thought he was going to get caught just doing it?
No. So again, he was a survivalist. Like, those kind of skills you just don't learn overnight. So that was definitely planned ahead of time. Like, he knew that he was going to go on the run. He was going to do more bombings. He told the FBI in his big confession or whatever, he was actually going to booby trap the National Guard base. He was going to like mess with them, blow stuff up, whatever. And they believe that because their presence was so strong, again, it's been probably 8 years since I read this book, but I believe the FBI director, he's retired now, but the FBI director at the time said that at one point they had 20,000 people there. Just out. Again, this is a national forest, so you gotta figure this is probably, if I am correct, it's the Nantahala National Forest. Just the game land where you can hunt down there is like 283,000 acres.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I don't know how big the entire national forest is. I know 20,000 people sounds like a lot of people, but I mean, you got to figure that's
It's probably a speck on a map.
yeah. I mean, so that the number was appropriate, and again, they were trying to deter, more bombings. They were trying to deter more crime. They were trying to deter more more bad things from happening. But they hunted for him. I think they said the first like year and a half they had like crazy manpower. They were putting everything they had into this, and then a couple of the like really high ups in the Raleigh office. It's Raleigh, North Carolina. They were like, hey, Rudolph's dead. This is pointless. He's somewhere else. He's gone. There's no point in us continuing our search efforts here. And the FBI agent that was, in charge of this, that came out of the field office, he was like, he's here. We know he's here. These are only the sightings that we're getting. They had sightings all over the country. And he was like, the sightings in Murphy are the only ones that we have proof of. There's proof of him breaking into people's houses. There's proof of like people camping. There's evidence of him being here. Let's continue to look for him. And then slowly his chain of command was like, yeah, we're going to go ahead and start pulling this. We're going to start limiting this down.
I bet he felt like a crazy person.
Yeah, but I mean, you got to think if you go back to watching the Night Stalker documentary, the detective that started like piecing stuff together. I don't even think he was from California. I think he was from Arizona. Everybody was like, dude, you're crazy.
Yeah.
But he kept on it. He just kept on and kept on and kept on, and then eventually they caught him.
I'm just saying, like, with this, that's like chasing a ghost. I bet like everybody else was quitting and he's just like, no, he's out there. I know he is. I bet he did. He just felt crazy. And I wonder, do you think that Eric messed with him?
Without a doubt. There was definitely things. Again, it's been a while, but I remember like in the book he was talking about that he would like leave campsites for people to find, or he would leave just like little pieces of things. And the area that they were searching, it was like highly camped. It was highly traveled until they started searching the area, and they were like, hey, nobody's allowed to camp here. Nobody's allowed to use this part of the forest. So, everybody needs to get lost. And then, as time went on, they started pulling back. I think he said that there was only 3 agents from the FBI. They still had like a little bit to do with the National Guard. I guess like, on the weekends that they trained or whatever, they would go up there and, look around and simple stuff like that. But for the most part, the search was off. Eric Rudolph was gone. There was no finding him. He was either dead or gone. And so, a couple years passed by, a hint here, a hint there, but he's just surviving in the woods. And that's where the speculation starts coming in. Did he do it alone? Did he have help? What happened?
I mean, did they ever watch his family?
Oh yeah, his family was constantly being watched.
Well, I'd say his brother probably was.
Yeah. I don't know if his brother, I don't think they could charge him for like self-mutilation, but I would definitely say like he probably got some mental help. He needed it, that's for sure.
Well, so do you think that Eric like did things to intentionally let his family know?
No.
No.
I don't think he cared about his family. Another report So again, the FBI left him in Cherokee County Jail. Not for a long time. I think it was like a week, maybe a little bit longer, to see if he would start spilling the beans. Like, this is what happened here, blah, blah, blah. All he talked about was the jailers' families, technology, what was going on. He never once asked if his mother was alive. He never asked about his siblings. Nothing. Nothing personal. He never asked. He never cared.
So that brainwash thing.
Yeah.
Like, he left all that behind when he joined that church.
Cult.
It's a cult.
It was definitely a cult. But it was crazy. Again, he was, you got to figure he was right there at the National Guard base. He buried that dynamite there. He was foraging and living off the land. He had no reason to necessarily be afraid anymore because they had pulled their effort back so much. So you fast forward, it's May 31st, 2003, and this super rookie officer, Jeff Postal, is doing his normal rounds. He's going through, again, this is a teeny tiny mountain town. Nothing ever happens. It's like DUIs and, like DV stuff. It's a small town. So, he's doing his normal thing. He pulls into this parking lot. It's called Save-A-Lot Foods, and there's like a Sears appliance center, not like a full Sears store, but just the appliance center. Does his rounds through the parking lot, and then sees somebody like rummaging through the dumpster, and then they hide. So he goes over there. He tells the guy, like, hey, come out. And it's Eric Rudolph. And, the guy comes out. Well, again, super rookie officer is like, this guy's got a gun. He's freaking out on the radio. It's small town. So, like 4 officers respond.
You mean the whole police force?
Pretty much. The whole Cherokee County Sheriff's Department.
All 4 of them.
Yeah, all 4 of them.
Including the one reserve that's included.
Yeah. They all roll up. At that time, he had already gotten him on the ground. He was face down. Come to find out, the bulge in his pocket was a pair of binoculars. And what they thought was a rifle was just a big mag light on a string that he had like wrapped around his neck.
Huh.
So they pull him out and they're like, hey, what's your name? Blah, 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 blah. They're starting to ask him questions. Just, basic trying to figure out who he is. And he tells them that his name was Jerry Wilson. He's born December 19th, 1964. He had no identification. He's homeless. I'm wanting to say he was just wearing like an old military jacket, military pants tucked into the boots. They said that they found like an old rucksack a little ways away. He's laying face down still while they're asking him all this stuff. They're trying to figure out all this. And they're like, hey, you're trespassing. Huge commotion just happened over the radio. Well, one of the other officers come over and they're like, hey, buddy, turn over. They turn over and the officer says, like, immediately his stomach started like churning. And he just kind of stepped back, pulled the other officers together, and he was like, hey, guys, this is Eric Rudolph. And Postal, he was working at McDonald's when the bombings and everything was going on. He was fresh out of high school. And so he knew, like who Eric Rudolph was. The whole sheriff's department had been updated, or like the rumor going around was that he had ties to this like super racist militia, and that he had been like staying in and out of this trailer outside of town, and just small town stuff. Mm-hmm. So they can't prove it. He's got Eric Rudolph had been like clean shaven, clean cut. The stereotypical like white supremacist look.
I need to look at a picture of him real quick. Keep going.
Yeah, check him out. But the more senior officer was like, I'm pretty sure this is him. You know, blue eyes, scar on his chin. Although, you know, he looks a little rough from living in the woods. He also had lost a ton of weight living in the woods. So they were like, we can't be sure, but we'll go from here. So the rookie officer is like, hey man, we're going to take you in for safekeeping. No matter what, you know, it's, you know, a hot meal tonight, a bed to sleep in. Tomorrow morning, if everything checks out, we'll let you go. And he's like, all right, you know, not a big deal. No resistance at all whatsoever.
Because he thought that he was going to get let go.
Well, they called his name in to the police department, or to the sheriff's department. And they're like, hey, you know, we got this guy. And they were like, yeah, there's no match for this guy. This guy does not exist. And they asked Eric, they were like, hey, you know, what's your social? And he's like, I don't have one of those. So that sounds, you know, kind of funky. But a lot of people, and I just found this out recently, like Amish people and people that live in like small communities, they don't have to have a social security number. There's like, I don't know, it's like some law that you can completely be off record.
Huh.
Yeah, so like you don't have to have that. It's like certain laws that protect people that don't want to fall into the whole like social security system and all that for religious purposes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean it's not like it's super unheard of, but they were taking precaution. So the more senior officer's name was Matthews, and him and Eric Rudolph actually grew up in Macon County together. Not like together, but you know, again, small mountain town. They had run into each other, and he put them in the back of Postal's car and looked at him, and he was like, man, you're not who you say you are. And he was like, you know, I just got chills because he just looked at me and smiled. So yeah,
no thanks.
They get him loaded up, head back to the station, and there was another TVA officer, the Tennessee Valley Authority, and you know, they're all sitting around and they're like, man, this guy's Eric Rudolph. So they're like searching the station, trying to find a picture of Eric Rudolph. They don't have one. So the rookie cop is like, hey, I'm just going to hop on this thing called the internet, guys. I'm going to print a picture out real quick, and we'll see if this guy's him or not.
I'll be able to tell you by tomorrow.
Yeah. So they get on there, they print out a picture, they walk back into the booking room, they hold it up. So, you know, Eric Rudolph's old picture, he's a lot beefier, has a lot more weight on. But this guy, same hairline, same attached earlobes. Like, you know, they're just like going through this and they're like, man, come on. Like, this has got to be him.
But you have to imagine, like, in their head, they're thinking, there's no way we just caught Eric Rudolph.
Yeah.
After all of that, all the National Guard, the searches, the manhunts, and we just stumbled upon him. Like, there's some kind of like...
Yeah, but see that, again, that's why they were just taking him in, you know, on that 24-hour hold. Just to see, you know, because they weren't 100% sure. So going back to the cop that pulled everybody back and was like, hey, pretty sure this is Eric Rudolph. Matthews, he walked up to Eric and was like, you look like someone I used to know. And the TVA agent was like, man, just tell us, like, who are you? And everybody said together that Eric just laughed like the coldest laugh possible. And instead of referring to himself like a family member or anything like that, he was just like, I'm Eric Robert Rudolph. You got me. And everybody was just like, it was just like surreal. Everybody was like, we got goosebumps. Like, it was
straight out of a movie.
Yeah. it was nuts. Again, like, it was a big deal. They like woke the chief of police up. They
Oh gosh.
yeah, like it was pretty big.
That goes back to his like God complex though. In the whole, you got me.
Yeah.
Like, because yes, he was still like most wanted and all this, but in all reality, like the FBI pulled back. Like everybody pulled back. It was almost as if he was irrelevant, even though he wasn't, and what he did was serious. He still had it in his head that like they had to work really hard for this.
Yeah.
Like he almost presented it as like he let them, you know? Like that's so annoying. Ugh.
Yeah. So everybody reported that he was just super calm, like nonchalant about it. It was like, yeah, it's me. The chief of police came in and interrogated him, but asked him like, hey, where were you born? What's your driver's license number? He just told him all the correct information. I was like, it's me, guys. It's who I am. And that's where, they left him in the Cherokee County Jail for a little bit, hoping that he would reveal some information. And he didn't. Again, it was just like he was asking the officers or the jailers. He was like, hey, what's your family like? Just very off the wall questions. All of them were like, this guy's weird.
Yeah.
He's not normal.
We have to also think like to that as well. This is the first conversation with somebody that's not himself.
Yeah.
In a long time. Like how long? So 98?
5 years.
Okay.
That's how long he was gone. So, again, kind of the plot thickens. Keep in mind, this is a man that has, quote unquote, lived out in the woods for 5 years. They said that, like, his stubble was pretty clean cut, not like Mountain Man. He didn't have like a big beard and everything. It was fairly clean, which I mean you can achieve with a pocket knife. But
and we watched the Alone.
Yeah.
And they kept their faces, so that's not really.
Yeah, so I mean that's not like a huge telltale sign. But they said that his hands were soft, his fingernails were kept clean. Again, not impossible, but it just makes you wonder. Like,
I mean, I think that he had help. I think that I'm just going to be extremely, like, blunt about it. Anybody with the same views, which is not hard to come by, especially in, like, a close-knit town.
mm-hmm.
I mean, honestly, like, you have to think about it. If they knew who he was, they'd be like, yeah, we're going to help you, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, they would have been the first ones to give him up if questioned, again, without a doubt. But they felt like he did, quote unquote, God's work or whatever, and they were more than willing to help the cause.
Yeah.
So I think that he got help, but even if he didn't, like those little details, again, I think that he definitely over exaggerated whatever happened out there. The whole salamanders and acorns, like, shut up.
I mean, if the truth be told, he probably lived off of trash and grain.
Exactly.
Because again, he did go to that silo and like, take a bunch of grain and stuff.
And there were restaurants back then. I mean,
yeah.
He ate a lot of leftovers and like thrown out stuff.
Yeah.
So the whole over exaggerated thing. But if he did have help, which I think he did, then
again, going back to like going to the owner of Save a Lot or whatever it was called, he went to his house, left money. I can't remember if he took his car or not, but there was some stuff that just, again, it didn't add up. And then he got caught in that same man's dumpster. Like, again, I'm not saying that man helped him, but there was some familiar ground there that he He definitely stayed in that area for a reason.
Yeah, and actually, I retract my statement from earlier about like the reason he was so calm and whatever, because that was the first. If you think about it, like if you're all alone, nobody to talk to, you're gonna go mad.
Yeah.
Like that will drive you insane. Not having anybody to talk to. Did he talk to the salamanders before he ate them? They didn't talk back. No. The more you put it together, I think he had help. That's just my personal opinion, though. Yeah. Like you can't be that calm, cool, and collected after spending 5 years by yourself.
I mean, then again, talking about the whole psychopath thing, maybe he had that disconnect. I don't know. I'm playing devil's advocate here.
I don't know though. I don't know about the whole psychopath thing. Like he did that for a reason. Like he did what he did because he had strong feelings about that. Like there was an emotional, like even though it was like cult based, there was an emotion behind that.
Yeah, I could see that.
So I don't know. Very confusing.
But if you look up pictures, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll try and post a picture in this part of the video when they brought him out of Cherokee County. They were like, hey, we're not going to have another Oswald. Because, Jack Ruby was like, guess what? You're dead. And they're like, we're not going to have another Oswald. So Eric Rudolph was actually one of the first people that they were like, wait, we're going to throw a bulletproof vest on you and attempt to keep you alive.
I think I've seen that.
Yeah. He's like walking out in an orange jumpsuit. But they pulled him out. I believe they took him down to Alabama. And that's where, the process started going. And then his first, I can't remember what it's called. It's not appeals. It's like the first hearing that he had.
Okay, yeah.
Where, you can either plea or whatever. You can move on to trial. He pled not guilty. He was like, yeah, I didn't do any of this. And,
narcissist.
And then
just throw that out there.
And then a bit later came back, and that's where he pled this big confession in court. And the transcripts, again, you gotta pull the transcripts up and read that if you can bear to read it.
Narcissist. I'm just gonna keep throwing that out because he is.
he's mentally deranged. That's for sure. But I don't know. It's crazy. Reading through those transcripts at court, and I mean, he just rambled so much about
talking in circles, probably.
Not even talking in circles. Just, I mean, he legitimately believes like he had a cause. He was like, these murder mills, I've saved so many people, blah blah blah. Like, you guys are murdering this many kids.
I'll say it one more time. Narcissist. But that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. So, what was the sentencing?
So, part of his plea agreement was that he would be sentenced to 4 consecutive life terms. He was sentenced July 18th, 2005 to 2 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole for the 98 murder of the police officer Sanderson, the security guard at the Alabama abortion clinic. And then August 22nd, 2005, he received 2 consecutive life terms. And that exact day, he was sent to ADX Florence, the Supermax federal prison. And that is where he spends 23 hours a day alone in a 80 square foot cell. Yeah, that is where he rides out his life. And last year, he unsuccessfully tried to have part of his sentence vacated.
For?
Exactly. That's why I was unsuccessful.
Oh, there was no reason. He just said, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say the word again, but we all know what I'm thinking.
Yeah. No, it wasn't for nothing. In June of 2020, he tried to vacate, correct, or set aside his sentence for the offense alleged in count 2. So his motion is based upon the Supreme Court's decision in the United States versus Davis, U.S. 139, holding that the definition of the term crime of violence contained in 18 U.S.G. Bunch of other stuff is unconstitutionally vague and therefore void. And they told him, yeah, that's not gonna happen, buddy.
Right. He just threw up some stuff. He said,
Yeah.
This is the one. Take
Yeah.
this one.
Yeah. So that statute, he was like, it's a little vague. I don't think that I necessarily fit this. So, yeah, if you guys could just suspend this for me, I'll get out of here.
And they said, fuck off.
Yeah.
Cool.
This episode is definitely explicit. So.
Nothing wrong with that.
But yeah, that's the story of Eric Rudolph.
That was good. That was really good.
It's wild. That's for sure.
His brother, though, like, that's a whole other case. That's like a mental case, though.
Could you imagine?
I'm just gonna ask the question that has been on my mind. Casey, would you cut your hand off on a live feed in protest for me?
No.
Okay, at least I think I'm married to somebody mentally stable. That's still to be determined.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. For your sibling, like, somebody that you grew up with, if they started going out and doing, like, super hateful, just heinous crap, I mean, you can be like, hey, I'm going to cut my hand off because you guys are treating him unfairly.
I am tattling on my siblings.
Yeah.
I am tattling. Cut my hand off? No, I'm tattling and I'm giving all the details. All the details. They're gone. They're gone. What about you?
Yeah, I'm not cutting my hand off. I'm like, who is this person?
Who are you?
I wasn't raised with them. What are you talking about?
They were adopted.
I was raised by a pack of hyenas.
That was a good one.
Yeah, it's wild.
Well, thank you for telling that story. You did it well.
Hopefully everyone else agrees.
All right. Well,
So,
I think this is it.
yeah. You have any insight for anything that you have upcoming?
I do have a case upcoming next week, but I don't think that I'm going to... I think I'm going to bury the lead on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I'm going to tell.
All right.
I'm excited.
Well, then I guess this is it. Like normal. If you're following us somewhere that you can comment, we would love to hear some feedback. Positive or negative. I fully expect to hear something about the way that I talk. Trust me, I listened to this and I was like, whoa.
Whoa.
But yeah, our email is loveandmurderpodcast22@gmail.com.
Follow us on Instagram at loveandmurder.podcast.
Okay, bye.
Bye.